In a world ravaged by war and chaos, where demons roam freely and terrorize the innocent, a lone warrior wanders the land seeking revenge. This is the story of Hyakkimaru, a young man whose body was stolen by demons at birth, leaving him with only a skeletal frame and a fierce determination to reclaim his humanity. With the help of a young orphan thief named Dororo, Hyakkimaru sets out on a perilous journey to slay the demons that robbed him of his body and to reclaim the stolen pieces of his soul. But the road ahead is treacherous, and the demons they face are more powerful than anything they could have imagined. As they travel through a dark and dangerous world, Hyakkimaru and Dororo encounter a cast of unforgettable characters, from a band of misfit samurai to a powerful sorceress with her own agenda. With each battle they fight and each demon they defeat, Hyakkimaru comes closer to achieving his goal. But at what cost? Will he be able to reclaim his humanity and find peace, or will he lose himself to the darkness that lurks within him? Only time will tell in the thrilling anime adventure that is Dororo. Starting off episode 1, we cut to a birth scene. As Lord Kagemitsu Daigo waits for his wife Nui no Kata to give birth, he recalls the time he made a pact with the 12 demons in the Hall of Hell, prepared to tread the path of evil in exchange for power. When his first son is born, the demons extract their payment. The child is born without limbs, facial features, or skin. The baby is set adrift in the river and left to its fate. 16 years later, he is now a young man, traveling alone, wearing a prosthesis made by Dr. Jukai. While hunting a sludge-like demon Daiki, the young man encounters Dororo, a young petty thief being beaten by 3 men who Dororo cheated out of their goods. The demon attacks and devours the men, but the young man destroys it with blades inside his prosthetic arms. Following the death of the demon, the young man's missing skin reappears, and a demon statue in the Hall of Hell is split by lightning. Meanwhile, back in Ishikawa, Kagemitsu Daigo's second son Tahomaru returns home from hunting. However, Nui no Kata still misses her first son. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. Which anime has the best power scaling? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now, back to the recap. Dororo, the tiny thief, accompanies the young man, who seems to be unable to see, hear, or talk. However, he has excellent sword skills, superhuman strength, and the ability to detect friendly or unfriendly beings by the color of their souls. Dororo takes the young man to a village run by a beautiful woman named Bandai and offers to slay a local monster, which rings a pilgrim bell, for a fee. While there, they meet the blind monk known as Biwa Hoshi, who can also detect people's souls. They discover Bandai is actually a demon who has been eating travelers, and the young man slays her. The monster reappears, ringing its bell, and a villager explains it is the spirit of the first being the villagers killed. The young man reveals his name, Hyakkimaru, to Dororo and the monk. As Bandai's statue in the Hall of Hell gets struck by lightning, Hyakkimaru regains his central nervous system, thus regaining the ability to feel pain. Meanwhile, Kagemitsu Daigo is told the Sakai clan appears to be preparing for war. The story is told of Jukai Sensei, a doctor who not only healed the sick, but made prostheses for those who had lost limbs in accidents or war. He once worked for Lord Shiba, crucifying wounded enemies until the day his loved one was killed by Shiba's soldiers, and he leaped into the sea. He was rescued by foreigners and learned how to make prostheses. One day, he found Lord Kagemitsu Daigo's abandoned and deformed infant on a riverbank. He took the child home and made special prostheses for him so he could move about and appear normal. 6 years later, Jukai gave him his name, Hyakkimaru. After Hyakimaru killed a lizard demon and his right leg was magically returned to him, Jukai realized that although the boy attracted demons, his body parts had probably been stolen by demons. Jukai inserted swords into Hyakimaru's prosthetic arms before the young man left to travel the land alone. Back in the present, Hyakimaru awakens from his sleep and tests his newly acquired ability to feel pain from killing the demon Bandai. Dororo chats with the girl Osushi while Hyakimaru stands outside, experiencing the feeling of rain for the first time. Suddenly, Hyakimaru detects a demon sword and rushes off. He encounters a man wielding the sword and only manages to defeat him by trapping the sword in his prosthetic leg. Dororo goes to retrieve the leg, but is pulled back to its owner when he touches the sword, Osushi's brother Tanosuke. Osushi takes her brother home, but he's only interested in regaining the sword. Tanosuke recalls how he was given the demon sword Nihiru, and how it changed his life in its eternal thirst for blood. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru disarms Dororo, but Tanosuke seizes the sword again and attacks Hyakimaru. This time, Hyakimaru kills Tanosuke and breaks Nihiru, which returns Hyakimaru's ears to him. Hyakimaru is having difficulty adjusting to his new hearing when he is attacked by a huge bird-like monster and is only saved by the appearance of the Biwa Hoshi. The priest tells them that they are in Sakai territory, with the clan preparing to march on the Daigo army. The next morning, Hyakimaru encounters Mio, a young woman singing a beautiful song, but he collapses from his wounds. The travelers stay with Mio and a group of orphaned children at an abandoned temple, while Mio works at night serving the Sakai troops as a prostitute. Meanwhile, the Biwa Hoshi finds a better place for them. However, it is inhabited by a demon. Despite his wounds still healing, Hyakimaru goes to fight it. The Biwa Hoshi is concerned. Hyakimaru's white aura is starting to show hints of demon red. They encounter the ant-lion larva-like demon Arijigoku, which bites off the lower half of Hyakimaru's real leg, leaving him screaming in agony. That night, Mio leaves to service Daigo's men in an attempt to make more money, and Dororo discovers the type of work she does. The Biwa Hoshi heads back to Mio's camp with Hyakimaru. His leg is half gone, but his voice has returned. Meanwhile, Dororo questions the other children about the type of work Mio does, but they are unaware. Hyakimaru slowly adjusts to using his hearing and his voice with the help of Mio. They become drawn to each other, and the red in his soul fades. Although only partially recovered, Hyakimaru returns to kill the Arijigoku demon, this time with some swords the children recovered from the battlefield. He succeeds in killing the demon, and his legs heals. However, when he and Dororo return to the temple, they find Mio mortally wounded and Daigo troops murdering the orphans because they believe Mio is a Sakai spy. Enraged by the attack on Mio, Hyakimaru goes berserk, slaughtering all the Daigo troops until Dororo intervenes, fearing Hyakimaru may become a demon himself. Later, Dororo finds some precious seed rice in Mio's hand, taken from the samurai she so despised to start her farm. After burying the dead, Hyakimaru and Dororo continue their travels. Starting off episode 7, Hyakimaru and Dororo come across the female spider-like demon Jorogumo, who has captured a man. Hyakimaru attacks the demon and wounds her, but she escapes. The travelers enter a nearby village, which has a problem with men disappearing at night. The next day, the kindly Yajiro heads out on a trail and finds the ailing demon, who appears in the form of a beautiful woman. He takes her home, and after feeding her some ohagi, gives her the name Ohagi and leaves for work at the Lord's quarry. Although she is hungry, Ohagi resists eating Yajiro because of his kind nature. Yajiro offers to guide the ailing Ohagi out of the village, and it is revealed local men have not been captured or killed, but that Yajiro has been helping them flee from the oppressive local lord. Yajiro and Ohagi encounter Hyakimaru, who attacks Ohagi, but she escapes with Yajiro. Yajiro takes Ohagi to a secret passage in the mountain. However, they are attacked by the lord's troops, and Yajiro is wounded. Enraged, Ohagi attacks and defeats the troops, but this attracts Hyakimaru to her. As Hyakamaru and Ohagi prepare to fight to the death, she worries about Yajiro, and the red demon color of her soul fades, so Hyakamaru withdraws and lets her leave with Yajiro. A dark cloud containing the demon Nokosare Gumo appears over a village, and the villagers hurriedly prepare a woman as a sacrificial bride to appease it. As Hyakamaru and Dororo see the bridal parade traveling up the mountain, Saru, a wild boy, tries to stop the sacrifice. After Saru tells them the story of Nokosare Gumo and that he considers the sacrifice his sister, Dororo and Hyakamaru agree to exterminate the demon. A dark cloud envelops them, and Nokosare Gumo appears as a large centipede. However, Hyakamaru is unable to differentiate the demon from the cloud as they both show red to his vision, and it swallows the woman. Dororo and Saru devise a plan to create an explosion using the sulfurous gases emitted by the mountain, which sets the demon ablaze but has little effect. Dororo then jumps on Nokosare Gumo's head and calls to Hyakamaru, enabling him to locate and attack the centipede by sound, destroying it. The dark cloud dissipates, and Hyakamaru, Dororo, and the woman, who is still alive from being swallowed whole, fall into a spring. Saru is relieved to find his sister and agrees to move into the village with her. Hyakamaru regains his sense of smell and, for the first time, addresses Dororo by name. Dororo falls ill with fever, and Hyakamaru takes him to a temple for treatment. Delirious, Dororo sees some bled red spider like lily flowers, and it triggers memories of the past with his mother, Ojiya, and his father, Hibukuro. Hibukuro was the principal leader of a group of bandits composed of former farmers which regularly raided samurai as retribution for their loss and suffering. One day, Itachi, his second-in-command, suggested that they raid a battle-weary group of Yanagimoto, but it was a trap set by Itachi, who had decided it would be more profitable to work for a samurai lord. He took Hibukuro's surviving men and crippled Hibukuro's legs. The family were left to raid bodies on the battlefield for supplies, where Hibukuro said the color of red spider lilies may come from those who died in battle. One day, they encounter a group of samurai burning down a village. Hibukuro is recognized and ultimately killed after a fierce fight. Dororo and Ojiya survive by foraging for food, but Ojiya eventually dies of starvation in a field of red spider lilies. Back in the present, Dororo recovers, but the priestess reveals to Hyakamaru Dororo is actually female, calling Dororo young girl after removing her clothes to wash them. Meanwhile, Kagemitsu Daigo is told Hyakamaru may be alive from a survivor of the attack on Mio's camp. Bakemonogani, a crab-like monster, devours a man after destroying his boat. Meanwhile, the drought in the Daigo lands worsens, and Lord Kagemitsu is advised of the Asakura clan gathering on their border. He visits the temple and finds more demon statues destroyed, and the demons inform him Hyakamaru is still alive and slowly retrieving the stolen pieces of his body. Kagemitsu's son, Tahomaru, discovers his father is searching for a baby. Later, Tahomaru and his two bodyguards, Mutsu and Hyogo, encounter a village where they speak of a monster in the lake which eats fishermen. He leads a group of villagers in their boats onto the lake and attacks and damages the monster, but it is too fierce and they are forced to retreat. Tahomaru then has the villagers construct a trap intending to lure the monster into a shallow channel where the water can be drained out. The plan works, and Tahomaru, Mutsu, and Hyogo attack it together. However, the monster fights back and almost devours Hyogo, but at the last minute, Hyakamaru arrives and slays it. Tahomaru is left wondering who the stranger is. Tahomaru learns Hyakamaru's name as the two travelers arrive in the Daigo capital. There, they see a plate depicting Kagemitsu Daigo as a great slayer of demons protected by the goddess of mercy. The Biwahoshi seeks the truth at the Hall of Hell, while Hyakamaru and Dororo visit the remnants of Fort Benmon. It was built by Daigo on the site of a village he destroyed and is supposedly cursed by a demon. They find remnants of a timber wall where Asakura pin bodies of their enemies with arrows. They encounter a young boy, Sukeroku, who wishes to cross to the Asakura side and rejoin his family. Meanwhile, Tahomaru's bodyguards report the incident with Hyakkimaru to Kagemitsu Daigo, who realizes his son is alive and decides to kill him and maintain the prosperity of his domain, ignoring his wife's pleas. Tahomaru overhears their exchange and later comes across a demented woman who was present at Hyakkimaru's birth. She tells him how the demons ate everything but left the boy alive. Night falls at Benmon, and a Kyubi no Kitsune, nine-tailed fox demon, appears. While it attacks Hyakkimaru, Sukeroku uses the distraction to pass the wall with Dororo in pursuit. However, they are captured by Asakura sentries. The demon is eventually chased off by the arrows of a squadron led by Kagemitsu Daigo himself, who then approaches Hyakkimaru. Hyakkimaru does not recognize his father and is confused when he sees demonic red in Kagemitsu Daigo's soul. Kagemitsu orders his archers to fire at Hyakkimaru, who flees. Meanwhile, Dororo and Sukeroku are held in an Asakura prison with other Daigo prisoners, but Dororo manages to escape. In the Kagemitsu compound, Tahomaru confronts Nui no Kata about his brother's fate, but Kagemitsu explains the bargain he made with the demons to save their land. Hyakkimaru appears and is seen by Nui no Kata and Tahomaru, but Kagemitsu orders him killed. Tahomaru is horrified, but Kagemitsu asks Tahomaru if he would be willing to sacrifice the land to save his brother. The Asakura start to kill their prisoners at the Benmon to provoke a war, and the Daigo army charges forward, attracting the fox demon. Lord Kagemitsu arrives with his army, and Tahomaru, who has reluctantly accepted his father's decision, and attacks Hyakkimaru. Hyakkimaru breaks Tahomaru's sword and damages his right eye, then kills the demon, which is sucked into the Benmon. Nui no Kata arrives and begs forgiveness for her complicity in Kagemitsu's bargain. She then stabs herself, and her sacrifice causes her goddess of mercy statue to collapse the Benmon. Survivors of the Sukeroku's village arrive, and Sukeroku is reunited with his mother. The Biwahoshi picks up Nui no Kata's small, headless wooden statue of the goddess of mercy, which sacrificed its own head at Hyakkimaru's birth so the child would not lose his head in his father's bargain with the demons, and its gentle green aura fades.
完璧だぜ。お前たちはさ、お前たちの前じゃ。Dororo.
The thief Dororo was actually born as a girl, but had lived as a boy for as long as she could remember. This could be due to her parents, who raised her as a male instead of a female since birth. Dororo refuses to speak or dress femininely. Hyakkimaru continues his search for demons while Dororo tries to convince him to visit an onsen. Later, Dororo encounters a woman called Okaka, who looks like her mother, near Hakumen Fudo, a faceless Buddha statue at a waterfall. Okaka, who tells the story of a sculptor who carved the Buddha statue but died before completing the face. As Dororo falls into a drugged sleep, Okaka finishes the story of how a demon inhabited the statue, but wanted a face. It revived the sculptor as Okaka, with the ability to change her appearance and voice, to bring human offerings so it could take their faces. Okaka drags Hyakkimaru to the waterfall, but he revives and starts to fight Hakumen Fudo. Okaka uses the demon's power to immobilize Hyakkimaru, but Dororo implores her to spare him. Okaka's heart is softened by Dororo's pleas, and she allows herself to be wounded by Hakumen Fudo's sword, giving Hyakkimaru the opportunity to attack and destroy the demon statue, and Okaka disintegrates. Later, Hyakkimaru and Dororo visit an onsen where they encounter the Biwahoshi and other children who see a map that appears on Dororo's back. Nui no Kata is shown to have survived her suicide attempt, but Tahomaru has been blinded in his right eye. In a flashback, Dororo's father, the bandit Hibukuro, drew a part of a map of the location to his hidden money onto the back of his wife, Ojiya, and the rest on Dororo's back, so they could retrieve it together later. Dororo memorized the map on her mother's back before she died. In the present, the Biwahoshi and Hyakimaru realize the map appears when Dororo's back heats up, which the Biwahoshi says gives her some choices in life. Hyakimaru continues his search for demons, unconcerned even when a huge baby-like monster grabs Dororo. They arrive at a burned-out temple, and the monster disappears as they encounter Sabame, the lord of the land, carrying a flower offering to the spirit who inhabits the site. He invites them to stay at his home, where he says the temple housed a nunnery that exploited children before it was struck by lightning and destroyed, killing everyone inside. That night, the travelers are attacked by a caterpillar-like monster. But when Hyakimaru wounds it, a huge moth-like demon, Mamai Onba, appears and carries it away. The moth lands near Sabame and transforms into a white-haired woman. After she tells Sabame the food he provided for her children was too strong, he consoles her and promises to protect her and her children. Dororo visits Sabame's prosperous village, where everyone seems happy. She finds a rice storehouse deep in the forest, but is pushed into the basement by the villagers. It is filled with the caterpillar monsters, which menace Dororo, but the baby monster returns to save her. The monster bursts open, releasing the spirits of the children from the temple, which Sabame and the villagers had fed to Mamai Onba after burning it down. Outside the village, Sabame tells Hyakimaru how he accepted the Mamai Onba, who fed on marauding samurai and beasts to protect the village, and then took her as his wife. The Mamai Onba moths emerge from their chrysalides and attack Hyakimaru, who fiercely fights back. However, the last one destroys Hyakimaru's prosthetic leg and then sacrifices itself to set fire to the village. Meanwhile, Dororo burns down the storehouse, destroying the caterpillars and the village's rice supplies, causing the villagers to fight amongst themselves over the remaining food. Hyakimaru finds and kills the original Mamai Onba, which returns his spinal column to him. He and Dororo walk back through Sabame's burned-down village, where many villagers lie dead, including Sabame. Dororo wonders if they did the right thing, but Hyakimaru states his only concern is killing demons. Dororo and Hyakimaru walk separate ways, but Itachi and his men find Dororo. Itachi has half of the map from Ojiya's back and demands to see Dororo's half. Dororo denies knowledge of a map, but Itachi and his men take her with them, believing she has memorized it. They travel for days, following Ojiya's half of the map, which Itachi discovered after he dug up her body. They arrive at Cape Hakotsu, where the treasure is located, but can't reach it without a boat. After failing to find boats at a nearby village, which they believe was destroyed by bandits, they meet Shiranui, a one-armed youth who offers to take them across. They board two boats pulled by huge sharks, Jiromaru and Subaromaru. Midway across, Shiranui reveals he fed his arms to the sharks. However, they developed a taste for human flesh, so he then killed the villagers to feed them. On his signal, the sharks capsize one of the boats and devour the men on board. Not wanting them to gorge themselves, he leaves Subaromaru to watch the second boat until they come back later to eat. Disheartened, Itachi recounts how he and his men were exploited by his lord. Dororo berates them for giving up and jumps in the water as bait to lure Subaromaru. On her signal, they pull her up, and when the shark surfaces, they stab and kill it. They then paddle ashore at Cape Hakotsu. When Shiranui comes ashore to investigate, he is savagely beaten by the bandits. Itachi strips Dororo's clothes looking for the map and realizes Dororo is a girl, while the heat of the fire reveals the map on her back. With the completed map, they tie up Dororo and leave, while Shiranui vows revenge. Elsewhere, as Hyakimaru struggles to walk, he passes a monk who tells him of a man nearby who can give him a new leg, Jukai. Jukai is adding limbs to the dead on a battlefield when a ghoul attacks, but Hyakimaru appears and kills it. Back in his cave, Jukai is horrified when Hyakimaru explains what his father did to him. Jukai realizes that although Hyakimaru's body has become more human, he is less human on the inside. He is reluctant to repair Hyakimaru's leg as he fears that it will lead to more fighting, and if Hyakimaru is to be successful against the demons, he will have to confront his own family. Suddenly, a landslide blocks the entrance to the cave. While Hyakimaru digs his way out, he reveals he is not alone as he remembers Dororo. Emerging from the cave, they find the fruit of a nearby Ayakashigi demon tree is producing more ghouls. Hyakimaru slays them all until he eventually pierces the tree's heart and destroys it. At the Daigo compound, Nui no Kata recovers from her suicide attempt, but Tahomaru leaves to kill a reported ghoul without visiting her. He and his aides find and wound a rat-like ghoul. Tahomaru then burns the building to kill both the ghoul and its progeny, who are still alive inside, pledging his sword to defend Daigo's land. When they return, Kagemitsu sends Tahomaru and a small army to kill Hyakimaru. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru rows a small boat towards Cape Hakutsu. Shiroani calls on the giant shark Jiromaru to eat Subarumaru's body, and it evolves into a demon capable of moving onto land. It attacks Dororo, but she is saved by Hyakimaru, who slays the demon. Hyakimaru's left leg is restored. Meanwhile, Itachi finds a cave and 2 of his men rush in, but are killed by booby-trapped explosives. Tahomaru and a fleet land on the shore in pursuit of Hyakimaru, and Tahomaru gives orders to leave no one alive. Several of Itachi's remaining men fall to arrows, and Dororo and Hyakimaru come across a wounded Itachi. Hyakimaru is attacked by Tahomaru, Mutsu, and Hyogo, so Itachi grabs Dororo and flees more arrows. High above, Shiroani detonates the booby-trap bombs he removed in an attempt to kill everyone, killing himself and causing a landslide. Many of Tahomaru's men are killed, and Hyogo is badly wounded, so they decide to withdraw, assuming Hyakimaru is dead. Meanwhile, Dororo and the mortally wounded Itachi fall into a cave created by the explosion and discover the treasure. Itachi dies after seeing it. Hyakimaru finds Dororo, who decides to leave the treasure hidden until she decides what to do with it. Hyakimaru and Dororo seek the swordsmith named Munetsuna to repair the swords in Hyakimaru's prosthetic, but the villagers tell them Munetsuna's swords are poor and his daughter Okowa is ugly. They find neither is true, although their house is filled with grotesque Hyotoko masks. When Munetsuna takes the swords to a temple to be purified, an Amanajaku casts a spell over Hyakimaru, who begins to say and do the opposite of what he intends, ending his journey and deciding to marry with Okowa. Feeling rejected, Dororo plans to throw away Hyakimaru's swords, but she encounters Munetsuna at the foundry where she tells him how she feels. The next morning, Dororo realizes she and everyone in the village have been saying the opposite of what they mean, and that somehow Munetsuna's masks enabled the truth to be told. Taking a mask, Dororo goes to the temple, but the Amanajaku causes Hyakimaru to attack Dororo until Munetsuna, also wearing a mask, knocks out the Amanajaku. Munetsuna explains that the mischievous Amanajaku was sealed under a statue in the temple, but it escaped. Okowa then realizes they were protected by the Hyotoko masks, and Munetsuna uprights the statue, resealing the Amanajaku. Okowa and Hyakimaru break their engagement, but she later marries a young man from the village. Hyakimaru refits the repaired swords and continues his journey with Dororo. Tahomaru and his aides observe misfortune befalling Daigo's villages, and since it started at the borders and is spreading inwards, they suspect the demons are upset Hyakimaru isn't dead. Back in his compound, Kagemitsu Daigo realizes his deal with the demons has been revoked since the destruction of the Goddess of Mercy statue and the days of prosperity are over. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru and Dororo encounter Daispot Saburota, who is hunting a local demon that ate his mother. They lay in wait, and a gigantic Nue appears. Hyakimaru goes to fight it, but is intercepted by Saburota, who now delights in seeing the demon devour terrified travelers. During the fight, Hyakimaru and Dororo fall down a rocky embankment, and Dororo's arm becomes trapped. Hyakimaru is unable to free her despite breaking his left prosthetic arm, and subterranean water begins to rise. Suddenly, the Biwahoshi appears and frees Dororo, though his sword is broken. Again, determined to regain his body, Hyakimaru attacks and badly wounds the Nue. It eats Saburota in desperation, absorbing him into its body. Hyakimaru finally slays it, however no part of his body is returned to him, even when he cuts the Nue to pieces, much to the horror of Dororo. The Biwahoshi watches sadly as the brutality results in Hyakimaru's aura gaining a red heart. Thinking he has a heavy fate to bear, Hyakimaru realizes he must confront Kagemitsu Daigo to have his body fully restored. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What is your favorite anime protagonist power-up? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now, back to the recap. Hyakimaru approaches Daigo's territory, and Dororo is saddened his single-minded desire to recover his body parts. They are recognized by a villager who notifies Kagemitsu Daigo. Meanwhile, the situation worsens in Daigo's territory. Villages that have become diseased are burned and their inhabitants killed. Able-bodied men are conscripted for the war against the threatening Asakura clan. Horses, including a nursing mother horse named Midoro, are taken as part of the war effort. Tahomaru decides to make Mutsu and Hyogo to stop Hyakimaru himself. Along the way, Mutsu and Hyogo recall their capture after seeing their parents killed and later being freed by Kagemitsu to be raised alongside Tahomaru. They find Hyakimaru and Dororo at a ravine littered with soldiers' bodies and attack him together. Hyakimaru severs Mutsu's right arm and Hyogo's left arm, and again cuts Tahomaru's right eye as Dororo looks on in horror at Hyakimaru's savagery. Suddenly, a group of men sent by Kagemitsu to protect their prince intervene. The leader sends Midoro loaded with explosives towards Hyakimaru, killing the horse and blowing Hyakimaru into the ravine. Dororo is captured by the villagers, and Tahomaru is subdued by a dart when he refuses to leave. Later, spirits possess Midoro's body parts, turning it into a flaming horse. Tahomaru's group return home with Dororo, while Kagemitsu prepares to repel an impending attack by the Asakura clan, planning to fight at Banmon. Hyakimaru is enraged Dororo has been kidnapped, his rage drawing the demon horse to him. Tahomaru visits Hyogo's sister Mutsu, who lost her right arm and is also weak from a disease she was hiding, but she refuses to see him as she won't risk infection. Meanwhile, Nui no Kata frees Dororo in gratitude for providing companionship for her son Hyakimaru and leaves with her. Their boat is smashed in the strong current, and they are rescued by Daigo refugees, including the Biwahoshi. Nui no Kata decides to stay to help care for the sick and wounded. Mutsu leaves the compound, badly ill, prompting Tahomaru and Hyogo to go after her. Elsewhere, Hyakimaru has joined with the demonic horse Midoro and is cutting a bloody swath through Daigo's soldiers, seeking Dororo. Mutsu staggers to the demon temple and offers herself to the 12th and final demon to protect the land and its people. Tahomaru and Hyogo arrive to see her offer rejected. However, when Tahomaru, Mutsu, and Hyogo later intercept Hyakimaru, their wounds have been healed by the demon. Mutsu and Hyogo each bear one of Hyakimaru's real arms, and Tahomaru has his 2 eyes. Daigo villagers near the border prepare for the impending war, and Midoro's foal runs away. Hyakimaru attacks Tahomaru, Mutsu, and Hyogo to reclaim his eyes and arms. Meanwhile, Nui no Kata and Dororo arrive at the battle but are held back by the Biwahoshi. Midoro attacks Mutsu and Hyogo, but is distracted by the arrival of her foal and is wounded. Enraged, Midoro tears off Hyogo's head and crushes Mutsu, but their bodies are controlled by the demon, which uses their arms to fatally wound Midoro. On their deaths, Hyakimaru's arms return to him, and he grabs the 2 sword blades that were in his prosthesis with his bare hands to keep fighting Tahomaru. Confused by emotions when he sees Nui no Kata and Dororo approach, Hyakimaru runs off with Tahomaru in pursuit. The villagers, Biwahoshi, Nui no Kata, and Dororo debate the value of one life against the needs of many, and conclude only what is gained by their own hands will last. At the border, Kagemitsu Daigo leads his army forward, determined to defeat the Asakura and give meaning to his decisions. Hyakimaru follows Tahomaru to the Daigo castle, and their fight resumes. During the struggle, they knock over a candle stand, setting the castle on fire. The smoke alerts Dororo and Nui no Kata, who are drawn by concern for the young brothers. But let's stop for a second to give a shout out as promised, this time to Mr. X on our Valx Love video. They said, I like what I see. Thanks for commenting, and now back to the action. Tahomaru and Hyakimaru continue their fierce battle inside the burning Daigo castle, each believing it is their inherited domain. Meanwhile, Nui no Kata leaves the Biwahoshi and Dororo while she enters the castle through a hidden tunnel and meets Chukai. Above them, Hyakimaru finally defeats Tahomaru but does not kill him. The demon, with Hyakimaru's eyes, tries to take control of Tahomaru, but he removes the eyes, which return to Hyakimaru. After Hyakimaru slays the demon, he becomes whole for the first time, and Jukai gives him a newly carved Goddess of Mercy statue. Dororo and Hyakimaru are reunited as the castle burns. Nui no Kata tends to Tahomaru as he dies in her arms, and the castle collapses. Meanwhile, the last demon statue falls in the Hall of Hell, and Kagemitsu Daigo leads his army against the Asakura, losing many of his men. Later, Dororo proposes to retrieve the treasure to help the Daigo refugees, while Hyakimaru finds his father wounded but defiant in the Hall of Hell. However, when Hyakimaru departs without killing him, leaving the Goddess of Mercy statue behind, Kagemitsu realizes if he had not made the pact with the demons, Hyakimaru may have had the ability to save his land. Hyakimaru departs alone, leaving Dororo behind, knowing, however, that they will meet again in the future. In the final scene, some years later, Dororo, a young woman, runs to greet Hyakimaru, who smiles as he turns to see her. What a great ending. Go check out our other recaps and stay tuned for daily anime content. See ya later, anime fans.